Welcome to today's daily tune-in. I'm not going to put a date on this because this is going to be a timeless daily tune-in. I have the feeling that this is an extremely important and potent message for us to tune into. And no matter when you come across this video will be in perfect timing for you. As we go through this ascension process, there are waves of people, and these waves are waves of a collective that is on the same timeline through this process. Therefore, these messages are all timely, and also, each day we do have specific energies to tune into. But the one collective thing I can say is that these higher and higher frequencies that we are finding ourselves being more and more exposed to are becoming our normal. So to come in here every day and say, we've got big energies coming in, that's just where we are. That's what's going to be happening for the next 2,000 years. And they will be increasing and then plateau off in the higher realms, in the higher frequencies of that fifth dimensional frequency. So until we get to where we can calibrate to it and that becomes just the norm, we are in a massive growth phase energetically. So yes, there are always going to be massive energies coming in, but until we get to a point, there's going to be to a point of normaling and calibrating out to it, until we calibrate out to those higher frequencies. We are having to have waves of individuals who start to understand that there is something happening and they start to progress. So this message is going to be extremely potent no matter when you come across it. But first, I do want to check in with what is happening in our planetary energies in this moment so that, again, we can start to gain our awareness of what is happening, why we are feeling the way we are, why our physical bodies are having to change to acclimate to these higher frequencies, because our bodies are dense energies. Therefore, and then on top of that, operating in an emotionally dense world, in the third dimensional world, we are extremely dense human beings. So our bodies are having to acclimate, which is why there are so many symptoms like headaches and nausea and a feeling of being disoriented, ears ringing, aches and pains in the body, cold-like symptoms, clearing of the throat, sweating, perspiring. Someone mentioned today, which I hadn't even thought of, but the more hair, losing more hair than normal. Our bodies are shedding and purging in so many different ways, and we are feeling those symptoms. So let's get into the space weather for right now, and then I'm going to move into a very potent message for today. So let's get into it. Starting out with the Schumann, you can see that we have some of these pretty intense surges of energies coming in. And again, look how low, in these really low frequencies of energy, of ourselves, of our physical bodies. So this is where the earth has been resonating. This is where our bodies are typically acclimated in the third dimensional world, because that's where the earth has been vibrating. So these up here are hitting very low frequencies, which are in those emotional realms of shame and guilt, grief, fear. So all of that stuff is being triggered. And if you intuitively, what I was shown here is, it's almost as if this is like something is scraping, this stuff is being scraped away. And I was kind of like given the visual of, that hook thingy that the dental hygienist uses, and she scrapes away the plaque on your teeth. And it's, to me, it's such a miserable process. This is what's happening right now emotionally to many people, to our collective, to our worlds, to our systems, to our governments, the scraping away of all the really low, dense energies. So this is going to be coming out in you. This is what is being exposed within you. This is what is going to be a little bit or a lot painful. Okay, but this has to happen, and this is where today's message is going to come in with an emotional choice point that you have to make. So hold tight with that as we get into them the magnetosphere. And again, it looks very similar. It's probably going to look like this quite a bit as we go through. Almost every day, it's looking like the same thing. A lot of energy coming in from our sun, because we do know that we've had those coronal mass injections. We had another one, which you'll see here in a minute, yesterday. So again, a lot of energy. This thing won't click away. A lot of energy around our planet. So this pressure is what is creating this pressure that's scraping away all of those lower densities. So going into the, this is showing coronal mass ejections from the sun. And this is the third. We've seen these already, but look at the fourth. There's one that shoots off over here, right there. So again, we have some more activity. This isn't a huge one, but it's still enough that it's going to continue to push those energies in from the sun side, from the sun facing side of our planet. So again, solar energies are coming in here, and if you see back here, we're getting these galactic energies, and it's creating a lot of chaos and a lot of havoc. So now let's get into the message for. So I use the term of transformation happening in our planetary collective simply because it's a word that's more embraced by most and understood most. But at the end of the day, this is an ascension process, an ascension in frequency for our planet and for all of its beings, and us in it being beings on our planet, for all of humanity. If we remember the story of Jesus, and this is not a religious thing, it's just we are ingrained with the story of how Jesus ascended into heaven. And at that point, what ascension meant was the death of the physical body into the higher realms of existence in the higher frequencies that were not available on our planet at that time. Now, with where our planetary orbit is in space, those frequencies are available to us on this earth, on this planet. However, she is having to come up and start to resonate or start to calibrate to those higher frequencies. And we are as well. So this is the first time in this planetary existence that humans in physical form are able and are having the possibility of ascending their frequencies into the higher realms that used to mean death, but now are going into the fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional vibrational realms of existence that mean as we get higher out of the densities of 3D, the third dimensional existence, we are now being able to ascend into a higher existence of life, which is our heaven on earth. So when we talk about the new earth, it isn't some ethereal thing. It is literally our earth is becoming renewed as she sheds and shakes away all of the densities that have been inhabiting her, her. And that then means for us as well, we are having to shed away and purge away all of the densities that have kept us in these really low, dense forms. So when I was looking at the Schumann, or showing you the Schumann and saying it was almost like things are being scraped away, what's being scraped away are the parts of us that are, that are the parts of us that are carrying around shame and guilt, shame around whatever it is that we have subconsciously stored in our bodies because we haven't wanted to look at, but we operate and behave from that place of shame around different areas of our lives. Same with guilt and grief. Fear is just a constant message that we get from our outer world. We have to fear these, this plague, so to speak, going around our world. We have to fear the divisiveness. We have to fear um, our foods. We have to fear food shortages. We're given the message to fear our, the government and what's happening with all planet, all of the worldwide governments. We have to fear all of this fear being spread through our media, through radio, through the internet, the censorship. It's like it's being shoved at us, and it's inciting fear and rage and anger. And that is what feeds that third dimensional world. And we have been feeding off of everything out in our existence and pulling in. We've been feeding off others' opinions of us. We've been feeding off of what we think we should be doing in the world to play along in this third dimensional narrative that we've been given these third dimensional blueprints that we've been getting of this is how life is, and you plug into this system, and you plug into this way of life, and you plug into this idea of success, and we plug in and plug in and plug in, and little do we know that what comes out of that plug is just more fear. That when we unplug it, the fear is if we unplug from there, then everything falls away. And yet, this is the choice point that we have. Because when we rise up into these higher frequencies, we can then see how we are plugged into all of these belief systems, all of these narratives, all of these ways in which we are being fed these lower frequencies of being, which keep us in a dense world and keep us in a dense frequency. And the choice point is, if we choose to stay in that way of living, in that lower densities, in those lower densities of living, it will take it'll have a detrimental effect on our physical bodies, because our physical bodies are actually being pulled into these higher frequencies. But if we're way down here, the dissonance of what is happening environmentally to our planet and to us, but this system and this way of being that we're plugged into, it's almost as if we're going to be electrocuted. It's like we're like, we can't take it. And our bodies, and it's not exactly that, but I'm just the image came to me. Our bodies cannot handle that. And it'll have detrimental effects if we choose to stay within the lower frequencies of this planetary existence, because it is starting to dissolve, and we see the dissolution of so much around us. That is the ego-led world that has been built for us, that we have plugged into. And the ego-led world, I have some words that I put in here that I really wanted to go back to. The collective expectations of how we live our life is led by ego. It's being fed by the outer world, giving to us what its expectations are, and then those who choose it to then feed it with their own fear, with their own compliance, with their own choice to keep playing in that world. And that world is going away, and it's going to become more and more painful. And this is not to instill fear, it's simply to help you see it. And then there is these waves of souls, these waves of consciousness, these waves of humans that are starting to understand this process of ascension that is happening. And they're starting to make choices for themselves. And it's hard at first to unplug from all of that old way and shift into the new way, which is the soul-led way. And that sounds like a lot of, airy-fairy kind of stuff. But the soul-led way is built on faith in the unknown. And this 3D world has taught us that the unknown is unsafe. You don't go there. You stay where you're stable and where it's comfortable, and you know what to expect. You know, when you go to work, you're going to get your paycheck, you're going to come home and you're going to watch this, the evening news, and you're going to cook dinner, and then your kids are going to do the thing, and then they're going to get da, right? It's the constant compliance to what we know. And we have been taught that being in the known is exactly where we need to be. But it's quite the opposite, because that form of operating system means you're going from the physical world, you're living from the physical piece of life, which is the complete and opposite direction that we are meant as souls to live in this physical world. We are meant to live from a higher perspective of meaning and purpose that makes us feel and operate on an energetic level in these higher perspectives of life expansion, of joy, emotions like peace and joy and love, willingness and courage. And when we live from that, then the expression of the physical starts to then project that. So we've been taught the complete opposite operating system than we are meant to be living, which is why so many live in those lower frequencies, even though the template looks good, the story looks good, but there's still anxiety and stress and worry and fear and overwhelm and grief. Majority of humans are operating there. And this is where the choice point is happening right now. These two worlds are splitting apart, these two-dimensional worlds, and it's really happening. It's not some construct of a spiritual concept. It is scientifically happening. So we have this choice to stay in that old operating system or learn to ascend into the higher realms of existence, into the spiritual realms that then filter down into the physical realms where we then live heaven on earth. And why it's heaven on earth is because it's unique to every single one of us. It's unique because each of us has a spiritual purpose and a spiritual meaning in this planet, on this planet, in this world, to bring our gifts, to bring our light to the world, and that then filters down into the expression in the physical. Because we haven't been taught that, that seems so outside of our realm of understanding, and it is. But the choice point is, would you rather live here in these lower realms that are getting heavier and heavier and denser, or do you want to move into this realm where you don't know how to get there, you don't really know what it is, but you just know the end result is the complete and opposite expression of this, where you absolutely live your own unique heaven on earth? And when you do that, and your neighbor does it, and your family does it, and eventually these waves and waves and waves of consciousness and souls that decide to choose it, because this becomes denser and heavier, and they think, I don't want any part of that. So either their bodies literally check out of the world, or they choose then the choice point to come over here into the unknown, where they know that by exponential growth, the world and the planet starts to recreate itself in these higher expressions of beings, and then new systems are created, new organizations, governments are completely rehauled into the highest and good for all. The choice point is here, but what has to happen is you have to allow these old constructs to fall away, so that your inner work on all of that emotional and those densities that are being scraped away is to allow them to fall away, and allow them to fall away knowing that it is getting you into a higher frequency to be able to move into that unknown without fear, without anxiety. When you allow all of those egoic constructs
and all of the roles you play and the attachments you have to what your label is at work, and what kind of parent you are, and what kind of spouse you are, and what kind of daughter or son you are. And we're so attached to all of these different roles that we play that when we start to allow the densities in each of those roles that we've just accepted to fall away, and we just allow our roles to not define us anymore, so that we can create a higher and better expression and a healthier expression of each of those, should we choose, then we start moving into this direction. But the falling away, the dissolution of all of the old is what is the hardest and the scariest part for many. I am here to support you in that journey, in that piece, because the practice of hypnotherapy, the practice of holistic healing modalities that I do have, assist you in allowing your mental and emotional and your egoic mind to expand into these realms of the unknown. And when your mind expands, then it starts to understand that it can operate in those unknown places. And we start to then reprogram that mind to understand that it is completely being reprogrammed to a whole new existence. That is what clinical hypnotherapy does. That's what quantum hypnotherapy does, which is what my specialty is. The quantum hypnotherapy literally takes you and expands all parts of you into a more expansive and higher frequency, and allows your emotional well-being to also expand into the realms of courage and willingness. So we raise you from these areas, these denser areas, through the process of quantum and clinical hypnotherapy into these higher realms of existence. I'm here to support that process. I have been through the process. I'm continuing to go through the process myself, because none of us have ever been through anything like this. Therefore, we are having to understand what is happening. And when we start to understand and expand our subconscious into the realms of the unknowns, then we start to expand out of this world and gradually increase our own frequency, our own health, our own balance, and we start to live that soul-led life, which we can't see, we don't always know, but we walk it day by day in faith and willingness to follow the path. Again, I'm going to say it probably every video. This is a beautiful, beautiful time, because we actually have choice. We hear in the outer world, just give me a choice. That choice first starts on the inside. It starts with choosing a different way of operating, so that we have more and more choice projected out in front of us. And we will, and we do, when we choose the pathway that is opening up in front of us to ascend into these higher frequencies of ourselves, of our own expression of life, and of our planet. And this is where the great divide, the great split is happening. I talked about it last week on a video. So the great choice point is happening now. It's happening today. You get to choose it. This has been a really powerful daily tune-in. It's the day after a new moon. This is when intentions are set. So there's no coincidence that we are given this message today to be able to choose a new way, a new life, a new operating system. I want to thank you for tuning into these. I get so many great messages and emails and DMs now that I'm super, super stoked that you're watching them, that you're learning something from this. Allow me to support you in this process. I have my support group that's pulling me forward, and I get to put my hand out and pull you forward into this process with helping you to understand it more, giving you metaphors to help your mind, embrace it more, because this world down here is just going to get harder and harder to live within. And I want to invite you into a higher realm of existence. I'm going there too, and it's not always easy, but I'd rather be there than here. But the journey is what we are in the moment. And we have to choose that journey. I hope you choose it with me. Thank you for being here. And please share in the comments what you would love for your choice point to look like. What does your heaven on earth include? What does that look like? Share it, because by sharing it, you bring the unspeakable into the physical world, and you start to create it just by sharing it. And I would love to hear what your heaven on earth looks like. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next Daily Tune-In. Mwah. Bye.
If today's Daily Tune-In brought you value and insight, please consider giving in return for that value by leaving a love offering. All donations go to keeping this platform operating and in service to humanity during these transformational times. To go even deeper into your soul frequency, please consider these offerings. For personal insights into your most pressing questions and concerns, get an energetic insight reading delivered directly to your inbox. To take a quantum leap in your transformation, book a personal session with Vedette. There are several options available based on how deeply you would like to go into your most desired soul-led life. To find more information and to book your sessions, please visit VedetteMayer.com.